Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivaradhari Jaya Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivaradhari Yashodanandana Brajajana Ranjana Yashodanandana Brajajana Ranjana Yamuna Tira Vanachari Yamuna Tira Vanachari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jai Mr. Bhagavad Paramahansa Purudikacharya Divine Grace Srila A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada Ki Jai ISKCON BBT Founder Acharya Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai Jai Om Vishnupad Paramahansa Purudikacharya Ashtotra Sri Srimad Divine Grace Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur Ki Jai Ananda Koti Vaishnavinda Ki Jai Namacharya Srila Haridas Thakur Ki Jai Srimad Bhagavad Gita Ki Jai, Samaveda Bhaktivinoda Ki Jai. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to Shri Guru and Gauranga. Well, by popular demand, we're going to start reading another book at 8 o'clock like we used to. But I'm leaving it up to you to decide which book we should read. Remember when we used to read Krishna book or something? So I'm thinking Nectar of Devotion. How about Nectar of Instruction? See? You know what that is? That's it. You read it? Okay. Well, let's read that. Okay. That's the... In the matter of tat karma pravartana. Did you hear it last night? I mean, that was, to me, my hair was standing on end. She was so fired up. I was like impressed. Yeah. Okay. I think we're on 21. Yeah, we'll do 21, 22. They go together. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. On this 29th day of July 2019 in SanDiego, we're reading from Srimad Bhagavad Gita as it is. Translation and commentary by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada. We are in Chapter 5 entitled Karma Yoga, Action in Krishna Consciousness. And we're going to study text 21 tonight, page 248. Vayasparshe svasaktatma Vindityatmaniyat sukham Sambrahma yoga yuktatma Sukhamakshayamashnude Bhayasparsheshva saktatma Vindatyatmanayat sukham Sambrahma yoga yuktatma Asukhamakshayamashnude Bhayasparsheshva saktatma Vindatyatmanayat sukham Sabbrahma yoga yuktatma Sukham akshayam ashnute. Parashakti. Bhayasparsheshva saktatma Vindatyatmanayat sukham Sabbrahma yoga yuktatma Sukham akshayam ashnute. Bhayasparsheshva saktatma Vindatyatmanayat sukham Sambrahma yoga yuktatma Asukam akshayam ashnute. Bhayasparsheshva saktatma Vindatyatmanayat sukham Sambrahma yoga yuktatma Asukam akshayam ashnute. Bhayasparsheshu, in external sense pleasure. Asakta atma, one who is not attached. Vindati, enjoys. Atmani, in the self. Yat, that which. Sukham, happiness. Saha, he. Brahma yoga, by concentration in Brahman. Yukta atma, self-connected. Sukham, happiness. Akshayam, unlimited. Ashnute, enjoys. Translation. Such a liberated person is not attracted to material sense pleasure, but is always in trance, enjoying the pleasure within. In this way, the self-realized person enjoys unlimited happiness, for he concentrates on the Supreme. So I'm going to read the translation of text 20, then we'll read the purport of text 21, because he says such a liberated person. Well, what is that, such a liberated person? A person who neither rejoices upon achieving something pleasant, nor laments upon obtaining something unpleasant, who is self-intelligent, who is unbewildered, and who knows the science of God, is always situated in transcendence. Purport. Sri Yamunacharya, a great devotee in Krishna consciousness, said, Yadavadi mama cheta Krishna pada ravinde navanamada sadhaman yudyatam rantam asit tadavadi badanadi sangame smahyamane bhavati mukhavikara sushtu nishti vanancha. Since I have been engaged, now if you remember, Yamunacharya was a great king and then he became a great devotee. Since I have been engaged in the transcendental loving service of Krishna, realizing ever new pleasure in him, whenever I think of sex pleasure, I spit at the thought, and my lips curl with distaste. A person in Brahma Yoga, or Krishna consciousness, is so absorbed in the loving service of the Lord that he loses his taste for material sense pleasure altogether. The highest pleasure in terms of matter is sex pleasure. The whole world is moving under its spell, and a materialist cannot work at all without this motivation. But a person engaged in Krishna consciousness can work with greater vigor without sex pleasure, which he avoids. That is the test in spiritual realization. Spiritual realization and sex pleasure go ill together. A Krishna conscious person is not attracted to any kind of sense pleasure due to his being a liberated soul. Om jnana timarandasya jnanandana shalakaya chakshu unmidatam mena tasmai shri gurave namaha. I was born in the darkness of ignorance, but my spiritual master Srila Prabhupada opened my eyes with the torchlight of knowledge. I offer my humble obeisance unto him and all members of Sri Parampara. So Krishna is describing in this 5th chapter someone who is in yoga, and on the basis of transcendental knowledge he acts only for the purpose of self-realization, avoiding sense pleasure, and in this way transcending the modes of nature. So this liberated person is not attracted by these externals. Bhaya-sparsheshu literally means touching the externals, external sense pleasure. Asaktatma, one who is not attached. So this is the key. It's an internal state. It's not just separating oneself from these things and then still remaining attached, but actually uprooting the very attachment in the heart. This is the key. In yoga system, like as described in the 6th chapter, there's a great effort to separate oneself from the allurements of sense gratification. This is what the whole thing of going to a remote place, being alone, and even what the Christians say, mortifications of the flesh. Prabhupada describes standard yogic practice, those who are trying to attain yogic siddhis. If it's winter time, they'll go in the Himalayas and they'll sit out in the snow. They'll break the ice and take a bath in the cold water. And in other words, extreme physical tapasya, austerities. And in the heat of the summer, blazing heat we've been just having in the United States or in Europe, they'll seek out a desert, sit there, build some fires around there, and sit, and meditate in that. So this is you don't hear about Christian, devotees doing anything like that. That's not part of bhakti yoga. So that's extreme measures for the same purpose of trying to conquer over the impulses of the senses and the mind and the intelligence to engage in sense gratification. In the 3rd chapter, Arjuna asked Krishna at the end, what is it that impels us to do things that we know are wrong? Atakena priyukto yam papam charati purusha anichan apivarshnaya baladiva niyojita. Anichan means almost against our own will, and balad means by force. So this is the impulse of someone who has no spiritual assets, who is simply living in the material world. Things come into the senses, through the mind, through the ears, through the eyes, and they ignite a desire to engage in them, whether it's food or sex or whatever it may be. And those desires are implanted there. If you don't have a process of yoga by which you're systematically withdrawing from those things, or bhakti yoga transcending the desire, then you're impelled practically to engage in these things. That's what modern society is all about, is that people are helpless. The advertising industry, the educational, everything is geared toward sense gratification. And naturally, people engage in those things, become addicted, become habituated to it, and those form what in the Sanskrit is called hridaya granthi, knots in the heart. They just bind us. They're not always manifest, but they're there in seed form, and when the environment is such, when the impulse is there, when the object becomes, then the desire manifests and you go for it. So here, just the opposite is mentioned. Bhaya-sveshu asaktatma, someone who has achieved the state described in previous verses, equanimity of mind, detachment from the external things, understanding one is a spirit, not matter, and therefore seeing the body is just engaging in activities of the external world, but not identifying with them. Then you can remain detached. How? Vindajatmana yatsukam, by enjoying the happiness within. Brahma yoga yuktatma, that soul linked in yoga with Brahman. Now Brahman, the supreme Brahman, is Krishna. So this is described in Krishna consciousness. That's what Yamunacharya is experiencing. Ever since I've been experiencing this ever new rasa of serving Krishna's lotus feet, Krishna Padada Vinde. Ever since that's happened, then whenever I think of previous engagements, he's not attracted to it, he's repulsed by it. This is a high state of Krishna consciousness. In other words, it's not that you're gritting your teeth, going through life, avoiding exposure to objects of the senses, and then repressing some desire that's there. The very desire isn't there anymore. It's been sublimated into desire to serve Krishna, and that's what he's experiencing. Then, because he was the king, so he had so many experiences.
So he says, well, naturally those memories will come up, but he's not attracted to it. He's not reliving it. He's not, dreaming about it. He's rejecting it. This is a very high state of Krishna consciousness. And this comes up again and again in the Srimad Bhagavatam. Prabhupada would often quote a verse that we're actually coming up with in the morning class. When King Prithu, this is in the 4th canto, because King Prithu is a Shakti-avesh avatar, although he's often described with powers of a regular Vishnu Tattva, but he's Shakti-avesh, and he has, as often happens, the great traveling mendicants, whether it's the 9 Yogendras with King Nimi, or this is the 4 Kumaras with Maharaj Prithu. 4 Kumaras are like the first sages in the universe. They're the first sons of Brahma, and they look just like children. I always remember that painting. You remember back in Brooklyn, whenever they needed a child, they would always use Prickett's boy, Tulsi. So they have the 4 Kumaras. They all look like Tulsi and Nanda. They're being bathed by Maharaj Prithu. So, but they were great sages. They've just, by their yogic power, kept themselves so young because they didn't want to get entangled in family life. Because Brahma was, he needed to populate the universe. So he created these 4 Kumaras from his mind, and they refused. He said, no, we don't want to get entangled. And so Brahma became angry, and then Rudra came from between his eyebrows. It's a whole thing. So, but these Kumaras, they travel. They're also Shakti-vesh, Jnana Shakti. The knowledge, they're full of transcendental knowledge. And Prithu is Pala Shakti. You know the word Gopal. Gopal means protector of the cows. So Pala protector is what the Kshatriyas do. Their prime duty is protecting the innocent populace from the dacoits and other dangers. So this Prithu is the ideal king. He has all this Pala Shakti. And the Kumaras come there, and he asks them, as the great kings do, please instruct me. It's such a great opportunity to get the association of these sages, so you take advantage of it. You honor them greatly, you bathe their feet and give them a comfortable place, and you ask them basically 2 questions. What's the goal of life, and how do I achieve it? Sadhya and sadhana. Radhanath Swami, I think, spoke about sadhya and sadhana. Sadhya is the goal of life, and sadhana is how to achieve it. So what's the sadhya? So they describe, of course, going back to Godhead, realizing God. And the sadhana is bhakti yoga. So near the end of their instructing of Maharaj Prithu, a wonderful chapter. I remember this is one of the first chapters I proofread back in '74 when I was proofreading the Bhagavatam. I was reading these chapters. And so they come upon this verse almost near the end. He says, Yat pada pankaja palasha vilasa bhaktya karmashayam gutitam udgutayanti santha tadvanna riktamatiho yatiho piruddha srodo ganastamadanam bhaja vasudevam. The last phrase is very clear. Worship Vasudeva, therefore worship Krishna. So what is he saying there? Pada pankaja palasa vilasa bhaktya. A pada pankaja refers to the lotus feet of Krishna. So by the worship of the lotus feet of Krishna, the pure devotees, they experience this vilas. Bhakti vilas means the pleasure of bhakti. There's a certain pleasure in that. And by that pleasure, bhaktya karmashayam. Karmashayam, the fruit of desires or aspirations. Desires to enjoy sense gratification, which are like knots, gratitam. Gratitam and granta, it's the same idea. These are knots or ropes tying us to this world, all these desires. When we die with these desires in our mind, then they take us to another body to try to fulfill them again. This is how we transmigrate. So he says, karmashayam, asha means longing or aspiration for fruit of pleasure. Gratitam udgatayanti, they're untied or cut. The knots are, the gratitam are udgatayanti, they're untied. Gratitam Santa. So he's describing these saints, like Santa Rosa or SanDiego. It's the same word. The devotees. So the devotees who can experience that bhakti pleasure of meditating on Krishna, serving Krishna's lotus feet, all the things we do, that pleasure overwhelms or transforms or rather sublimates this sense gratification pleasure, and it's no longer there. On the other hand, by contrast, tadvanna rikta matayo. Rikta means empty. Those whose minds are empty of what? Bhakti. empty of attraction for Krishna. The impersonal, the karmis, of course, the ordinary materialists, but even the muktavads, those who are after liberation, who want to merge into the Supreme, or what to speak of the yogics, siddhis, those who are meditating to get some powers or live a long time. Anyone else whose mind or heart is devoid of bhakti, what happens? Yatiyo, they're striving to control the senses, but they're overwhelmed eventually by the tide of sense gratification, and they fail to untie these knots. Srotoganas means a kind of a river of allurements for sense gratification that are always entering all the senses. Eventually they overwhelm and they cannot control the senses. Therefore, Bhaja Vasudevam, worship Krishna, worship Vasudeva. That's what the whole verse is about. Now Prabhupada in his lecture, I'll never forget this, he's quoting that first line again and again. He's like relishing it. Pada Pankaj Balasa Balasa Bhakti. Vilasa Bhakti, Karma Vilasa Bhakti. He keeps repeating it. He's enjoying the remembrance of Krishna's lotus feet and experiencing as he speaks the same what's described in the verse, is that his mind is completely taken with the beauties of the lotus feet of Krishna, and he was a perfect example. He had so much opportunity. Started out with nothing, Just think of people who, as on the business level, start out with nothing, rags to riches, or like that. When they get to the top with all the money, and they're enjoying like anything. That's the whole idea. But Prabhupada started out with nothing in America. He had no money, he had no followers. Those who would look at his enterprise, age 69, ill health, trying to start a world movement, it didn't seem like a very good prospect. But he had the greatest treasure, the greatest wealth in prema dhana. Dhana means treasure, the treasure of prema. And he had the order of his spiritual master, he had Lord Chaitanya, but grace, he had everything behind him that counted. So, by Krishna's arrangement, by Prabhupada's determination and patience and enthusiasm, he succeeded. And at a certain point, in the mid to late 70s, 75, 76, he had dozens of temples all over the world. Some of them very wealthy. He had the Bombay temple was built. Of course, that opened in '78. But he had Mayapur. He had Vrindavan temples. He had thousands of devotees ready to do anything he wanted. He really millions of dollars at his disposal. But he was the same simple person. He was still performing extreme austerities, getting up in the middle of the night, dictating. The hardest austerity was running this society where you had, by that time you had some sannyasis going off, and you had, so many difficulties. And he was still soldiering on, sacrificing, at age 78, 79. Come on, you want to relax, take it easy. In fact, he was, now I want to retire and just write. He never could do it. There was always some crisis somewhere, right? The whole. So he proved by his life that he was completely detached from sense. Even when he had the opportunity, there wasn't a tinge of it. He was always sacrificing for Krishna, and giving his life for us and for Krishna's pleasure. So that there's a living proof that he can actually live on this platform. So that is the test of spiritual realization. You can see, I happened to read an article, this is about some of the other yogis who made it big in America, and there was a whole list of them who got into, affairs with their students, with their leading students, and it was horrifying. The Bikram yoga, with the heat, means that you hardly wear any clothes, right? In others, you strip down. And here's this guy, and he had affairs with this lady. Sometimes they were not so willing, it was just horrible. There was the yoga, that yoga didn't do this. It's not bhakti yoga. It's all based on, health, that's one thing, But the real goal of life is not to have a healthy body, but to have an eternal body, spiritual body in relation to Krishna. And so one after another, they proved Prabhupada's glory. And Prabhupada never had a hint of that, because he was actually on the transcendental platform. So that yoga can be used, I confess, I stand on my head. I used to do it every day. I try to do it every day. Without standing on your head, there's a little thing you can get where the weight is supported on the shoulders. Have you ever seen it? You just go up. Anyway, I'll draw it for you someday. I can show you on Amazon. It's very easy. And what's far out about it is that it was I think it was in Bombay. They were taking a morning walk or somewhere in India. And they came across morning, means the early morning, 7 o'clock. And there was a young man, and he was standing on his head. And the devotee said, "Oh, Prabhupada, we don't do that. We don't do that." So you should try it sometime. It's actually pretty good for you. In other words, Prabhupada himself was taking his morning walk. In other words, do something, for your health. You maintain it. And moderation in the yoga process is not a problem. It's when it becomes the all in all that you're deviated from yoga. So this verse and the next verse go together. And this next verse is, I always say it's like one of the most revolutionary statements in the whole Bhagavad Gita, because it undermines the whole basis of the capitalist system, of material life in general. So let's read that one, unless there's some discussion on this previous one. Yehi sangsparjaja boga dukkayona evate adyantavanta kaunteya nateshu ramate buddha. We're on page 249, Prabhu. Can you find it? 249. An intelligent person does not take part in the sources of misery which are due to contact with the material senses. O son of Kunti, such pleasures have a beginning and an end, and so the wise man does not delight in them. Purport. Material sense pleasures are due to the contact of the material senses, which are all temporary because the body itself is temporary. A liberated soul is not interested in anything which is temporary. I'll read that again, that's pretty important. A liberated soul is not interested in anything which is temporary. Knowing well the joys of transcendental pleasures, how can a liberated soul agree to enjoy false pleasure? You got it, Prabhu? Yes. Okay. In the Padma Purana it is stated, here's another important verse, I'll say, you say, Brahmante yogano nante satyanande chadatmani iti ramapadena sau padam brahma vidiyate. Okay, we're going to take time out. Give me the book so I can find it for you. Come on. Harekrishna. Okay. Yeah, there we are. Right there, Prabhu. You got it. You keep turning the pages. I don't know why. Hare Krishna. Welcome. Someone else with you? Okay. Hello. I think they're going to need 2 books. Hare Krishna. Welcome. Here, you can sit over here with the child. Looks. You okay? This one's for you. Here. Yeah, this is your book. And sit down over there. Okay? We're good. Now we need one more. See? Oh, you can give him that. Yeah, you got one. Okay. Oh, don't put it on the ground. Not on the ground. Yeah, take this. Stand. It's easy. We're on page 249. 249, and Krishna is describing, I'll read the translation again. An intelligent person does not take part in the sources of misery, which are due to contact with the material senses. O son of Kunti, such pleasures have a beginning and an end, and so the wise man does not delight in them. Material sense pleasures are due to the contact of the material senses, which are all temporary because the body itself is temporary. A liberated soul is not interested in anything which is temporary. Knowing well the joys of transcendental pleasures, how can a liberated soul agree to enjoy false pleasure? In the Padma Purana it is said, do it one more time, Ramante yogino nante satyanande chadatmani iti ramapadena sao param brahma vidhiyate. The mystics derive unlimited transcendental pleasures from the absolute truth. And and therefore, the Supreme Absolute Truth, the personality of Godhead, is also known as Rama. In the Srimad Bhagavatam also, 551, it is said, this is an important verse. I'll see you say, Nayam deho deha bhajanriloke Karshtan kaman harate vidbhujange Tapo divyam putakayena sattvam Shudye jasman dharma saukyam tanantam. My dear sons, this is an incarnation of God named Rishabdev speaking. My dear sons, there is no reason to labor very hard for sense pleasure while in this human form of life. Such pleasures are available to the stool-eating hogs. Rather, you should undergo penances in this life by which your existence will be purified, and as a result, you will be able to enjoy unlimited transcendental bliss. Therefore, those who are true yogis or learned transcendentalists are not attracted by sense pleasures, which are the causes of continuous material existence. The more one is addicted to material pleasures, the more he is entrapped by material miseries. So this verse, as I say, is very revolutionary. Hare Krishna. Sansparjaja bhoga is literally the pleasures that come from the senses touching their sense objects, which are varied. Now, that also includes mental or subtle pleasures. Yeah, we have some nice chairs outside because it's hard for the kids to concentrate on this philosophy. And she looks like she's very happy. Okay. So, the happiness that comes is dukkha yoni. This is like revolutionary. The very pleasures we strive to enjoy are sources of misery. Now, just within one lifetime, we can understand how that is. Certainly, the more extreme pleasures that come, say, with drugs. I mean, no one takes any drug in order to be miserable and addicted and lose their minds. You take a drug because you want to enjoy, and indeed there may be some enjoyment, extreme enjoyment in there at first, but then there's always that after experience in which you come down, and oftentimes the drug will get a hold of you, and you have to just take the drug just to come back to a normal state, where you can exist. I mean, some of these, the more extreme the experience is, the more the backlash is going to be. And it's just, ultimately you're destroying yourself. I mean, just think of alcohol. I mean, I remember, when I was 17, oh my God, I was before underage, we drink beer. This is going back 1961, 62, maybe 63, whatever it was. I said, oh, that was cool, you get a little high. But then what happens if you really get into it, and you become dependent, you become an alcoholic, you ruin your liver, you ruin your life, It's horrible. So that's an extreme example of exactly sansparjita bhoga. There certainly is some pleasure there. Dukkha yoni is the source of your misery. This is not a mysterious view. And on the longer term, what's the miseries? The miseries are basically birth, old age, disease, and death. In chapter 13, Krishna said a transcendentalist, one who's interested in real knowledge, will understand. There's a whole list of 18 to 20 things which is worth studying, and one of them is janma, mrityu, jara, vyadi, dukkha doshanudarshanam. This word dukkha means misery. One should always see and be aware of. Don't let it get too out of your mind of the miseries of birth, old age, disease, and death. And I was put them in order: birth, old age, disease, and death. Birth, that's the cycle, So that's really our problem. We have all these little problems that we create, or just by being a human being. We have solve the world problems, individual problems, the family problems. What am I mean? Financial problems. I got a health problem. Okay, fine. But the overall problem is that you've taken birth in a material body, which means misery. Krishna says, Mamupetya punarjanma dukkadayam ashashvatam. Until one comes back to me, Mamupetya, in the spiritual world, and transcending this world of birth and death, You're going to stay in this dukkha alaya. Alaya means an abode of miseries, headed by those four, but not only those four. There's also the threefold miseries, the miseries caused by one's body and mind, the miseries caused by others, other living beings. Prabhupada gives examples of bed bugs, maybe you experienced them in India or on the Bowery. And miseries caused by the divas, by the demigods, natural disturbances. There's a locust plague, they call it grasshoppers, in Las Vegas right now. Biblical plague is happening. Check it out. All that heat and I don't know what's going on, but they're coming by the millions. They can see them on the satellites. The satellite images are showing these huge clouds of grasshoppers, locusts. Who would imagine, you know? I came to Las Vegas to have a good time, to gamble in the casino and enjoy in the hotels. What's with the locusts? Sorry, that's part of being in the material world. So that's dukkha yoni, that's part of it. It happens on an individual basis, we can see it, and just bringing you back again and again to the material birth. Adyantabanta. This is the big thing. It has a beginning and an end. You aspire for it, you experience it, you remember it, you long for it again, but the actual experience is fleeting, no matter what it is. And therefore, knowing that we are eternal, the first lesson of Bhagavad Gita, we have to be happy, we have to find a way of being eternally happy. And you can't do that on the material plane. The material plane is always changing. Whatever rare arrangements you have, for being pleased on the sensual level, it's very fleeting. Obviously. I mean, anyone who's lived in this world for a little while. Just like little kids know it. They want to be blissful all the time, but then it's not like that. The mother puts them down, or they get an itch here or something. They're hungry, and my elder brother. I remember I once had this epic fight with my elder brother. I swear I would have probably had a lifelong injury if my brother had caught up with me. Look, my father came into the house and stopped him. I regard this as a Krishna's arrangement. He was literally, I broke his favorite thing and he broke my favorite thing. I knocked off his baseball trophy, and oh my God. And it was escalated, He was 5 years older than me, so he would have taken. And my father saved me at the end, But I mean, sometimes it doesn't happen. Anyway. Material life. Nateshu ramate buddha. The key word here is buddha. We have to be intelligent and don't take our pleasure there. So we're pleasure-seeking beings. Where are we going to take our pleasure? And this is the magic of Krishna consciousness. From day one, if you can suspend your disbelief and just try it, the Hare Krishna mantra, and actually chant with a little concentration, you'll find it, and getting high. Stay high forever. This was one of their original pamphlets, because they're right in the middle of the Lower East Side. Everybody's dropping acid, smoking dope, So that's what they were interested in. So Prabhupada's first followers had also graduated from that. They knew going in, that's why he had only a handful, that there was no drugs. No drugs, no sex, except in marriage and have children, basically no sex. So naturally, there were only a few who were willing to try it on that level. But when they did, they found that yes, they can rise up to another platform of enjoyment. And so that was one of their main pamphlets. It was thought up by Chutananda, I think, and some of the others. Stay high forever. They're handing them out by the thousands in the Lower East Side. And that's what it really is. When you read the Chaitanya Charitamrita, which is an account of Lord Chaitanya's life and his devotees, you can see that they're all at a very high level of bliss. They're not up and down, depression. It's bliss and extreme bliss, and that's where they're at. Because they're on this platform of spirit, which is eternal. And so whether you're old, externally, he had elder, devotees, or young and healthy, that's not the criterion. It's your absorption in Krishna consciousness, in thinking of Krishna and serving Krishna on all levels that keeps you on this blissful state. The only thing in the way of it is our own mind. That's why it is said, it'll say in the next chapter, that the mind is our friend and the mind is our enemy. The mind that's absorbed in matter, in material, pains and pleasures and fears and all of these things is our worst enemy. We're living with our worst enemy. But the mind that you can control and you fixed on Krishna, becomes trained to always think of Krishna and serve Krishna, is your greatest friend. Because it's naturally attracted to Krishna. Beginning of 7th chapter, Maya Sakta Manapada Yogam Yunjan Manashya. Krishna says, Arjun, now I'm going to teach you how your mind can be naturally attracted to me and take pleasure in me. Because the previous chapter, he said, here's how you can train the mind artificially, more or less. Pranayama, go alone to a sacred place, back straight. If your back isn't straight, it's not going to work. Back straight. Think, here, breathe, and fix the mind on me, in the heart. Arjuna says, I know a way I can do it. Chanchalam himana Krishna pramati balavadradham. The mind is so restless. It's like trying to control the wind. I can't do it, Krishna. It's not possible. Krishna says, yes, you can. By practice, you can do it. So Arjuna says, well, what if I fail? I've given up. I will have given up all my life here, and I've gone to the mountains, but I failed to achieve. Now I'm lost in both worlds. I can't go back there. I'll be like a riven cloud. So Krishna says, no, don't worry. Whatever progress you make in this life, you'll take up in your next life. So altogether, Arjuna's not very sanguine. He's not very hopeful about success. So Krishna says, don't worry. The last verse, Yogi Nama Visarvesham, the best yogi, the one who's always worshipping me with great and transcendental faith, and always thinking of me in the heart. And Arjuna was like that. He was the best friend of Krishna. He was always thinking of Krishna. But in the next chapter, next verse, first verse, 7th chapter, Krishna says, okay, now here's a practical arrangement. The middle 6 chapters of the Gita, how you can naturally begin to see me in everything. Earth, water, fire, air, ether, mind, intelligence, and false ego. These 8 are my external energies, separated energies. And these are the lower, apara prakriti. But there's a para prakriti, or parashakti, which consist of the soul. And these jivas, they're sustaining the universe. So there's nothing in the universe except the combination of this lower and higher energy. You see? And then he says, okay, rasoham apsakonta. I am the taste of water. I am the light of the sun and the moon. I am the fragrance of the earth. I am the strength of man. I am this. When do we not experience one or more of those? Next time you go out and you see the sunshine, you say, oh, that's Krishna. That's Krishna's energy. You see the ocean? That comes up in the 10th chapter. Of bodies of water, I am the ocean. Whenever you see anything that's magnificent, beautiful, powerful, know it to be just a spark of my splendor. The whole point is to train the mind to see the divine in everything, to see God everywhere. That's the first step in God realization. And then when you hear about Krishna's personal qualities and his pastimes, you can become personally attracted. That's the same Krishna, all powerful and all loving and all merciful and all accessible. When you hear about a great person, said, oh, she is way too busy, famous to see me. I'm just a small timer. But Krishna is so great, he can have a personal relationship with every one of us. Individualized, customized for us. Every jiva has his own special mix of rasas, predominantly friendship or something, That's God. Not just great, way beyond, our conceivability we can know. No. Very much conceivable. The form, the name, qualities, pastimes, So that's what can make us completely indifferent to this sangsparjita bhoga. And here he quotes this nice verse from Padma Puran. Ramante yogino anante satyananda charatmani. The yogis, the bhakti yogis, actually enjoy pleasure. Anante, without end. Unlike this ajantavanta, with an end. This is real pleasure, satyananda. This is actual bliss. It's chit atmani, spiritual pleasure. Therefore, the absolute truth is known as Rama. Rama means the source of complete enjoyment. Better to sit in a chair. Yeah. Oh, you can't sit in the chair? Yeah, sit against the wall. But just put a cushion next to the wall. It's even more comfortable. Definitely, you can sit against the wall. Yeah, one of the poles, the little fake poles there. Yeah, that's perfect. No offense. Okay, and then finally we'll just refer to this because I went too long. But this very important verse from Rishabhdev's first verse of his instructions to his sons in the 5th chapter, 5th canto. And what he's saying there is that human life is meant for tapasya. It's meant for purification, not just to let the senses run riot and then be on the level of the hogs, that are just enjoying abominable food stuff. Tapo divyam. It's got to be divine penance, divine austerity, because austerity itself just gives you power. Hiranyakashipu was a great ascetic. He had got tremendous power, material power, And anyone who achieves anything in the world does some kind of austerity. These billionaires and millionaires, they work real hard, to get where they are. Then they can go on their yacht, But the point is that austerity itself is not the purifying, but it's the divya. It's the divine penance according to the rules and regulations. And by that kind of austerity, just like we have austerity in this Hare Krishna movement, supposed to get up real early, chant a holy name, refrain from intoxicants and things like that. And that's an austerity. It's minor austerity compared to what, going off in the Himalayas. But still it's austerity. And that purifies your existence. Sattvam, existence, Shuddha is purification. Well, what do you want that for? Because by that, Brahma Saukyam Anantam. The whole emphasis here is how to get to that place of enjoying unending spiritual happiness, rather than this flickering material happiness which just causes you misery. But the spiritual happiness doesn't cause you misery. There's no bad effect. Just like you chant all your life. Where's the bad effect? No bad effect. It's all good. You don't become crazy, you don't become sick, you don't become, you just become better. You just become relieved. Oh boy, I'm glad I missed, all that entanglement. So that's that. But we started out saying that we're going to also read from the Upadeshamrita. So I don't want to be a liar since we promised. So we're going to start, even if we can only read for 5 minutes or 4 minutes. Okay, content. Sorry we didn't have time for questions, but we can discuss those verses tomorrow. Okay. Other books. Nectar of Instruction. Okay. Okay, Nectar of Instruction. And we'll begin with the preface. The Krishna consciousness movement is conducted under the supervision of Rupa Goswami. The Gaudiya Vaishnavas, or Bengali Vaishnavas, are mostly followers of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, of whom the 6 Goswamis of Vrindavan are direct disciples. Therefore, Srila Narottam Das Thakur has sung Rupa Raghunatha Pade Hobe Akuti Kabe Hama Bujja Base Yugala Piriti. When I am eager to understand the literature given by the Goswamis, then I shall be able to understand the transcendental loving affairs of Radha and Krishna. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu appeared in order to bestow upon human society the benediction of the science of Krishna. The most exalted of all the activities of Lord Krishna are his pastimes of conjugal love with the gopis. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu appeared in the mood of Srimati Radharani, the best of the gopis. Therefore, to understand the mission of Lord Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and follow in his footsteps, one must very seriously follow in the footsteps of these 6 Goswamis, namely, Srila Rupa, Sanatan, Bhatta Raghunath, Sri Jiva, Gopala Bhatta, and Das Raghunath. Rupa Goswami was the leader of all the Goswamis, and to guide our activities he gave us this Upadesha Amrita, the nectar of instruction, to follow. As Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu left behind him the 8 verses known as, who knows what they're called? Shikshastika, 8 verses of instruction. Rupa Goswami gave us its Upadesha Amrita, the essence of instruction, so that we may become pure Vaishnavas. In all spiritual affairs, one's first duty is to control his mind and senses. Unless one controls his mind and senses, one cannot make any advancement in spiritual life. Everyone within this material world is engrossed in the modes of passion and ignorance. One must promote himself to the platform of goodness, or sattva gun, by following the instructions of Rupa Goswami. And then everything concerning how to make further progress will be revealed. Advancement in Krishna consciousness depends on the attitude of the follower. A follower of the Krishna consciousness movement should become a perfect Goswami. Vaishnavas are generally known as Goswamis. In Vrindavan, this is the title by which the director of each temple is known. One who wants to become a perfect devotee of Krishna must become a Goswami. Go means the senses, Swami means the master. Unless one controls his senses and mind, one cannot become a Goswami. To achieve the highest success in life by becoming a Goswami and then a pure devotee of the Lord, one must follow the instructions known as Upadeshamrita, which have been given by Srila Rupa Goswami. Srila Rupa Goswami has given many other books, such as the Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu, the Vidagdha Madhava, the Lalita Madhava, but Upadeshamrita constitutes the first instructions for neophyte devotees. One should follow these instructions very strictly, then it will be easier to make one's life successful. Hare Krishna. Signed, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami, Vishwarup Mahotsava, Krishna Balaram Mandir, Raman Reti, Vrindavan, India. There's no date here. We'll put that in when we fix it. So we'll begin text 1 tomorrow. Hare Krishna. All glories to Srila Prabhupada.